the horror of the Wisconsin woods. In the remote forests of Wisconsin, where sunlight barely pierces through the dense treetops, a terrible secret lurked. For generations, locals whispered terrifying legends of a werewolf that terrorized their surroundings. The beast, possessing superhuman strength and razor-sharp claws, hunted unsuspecting travelers, turning their nocturnal wanderings into bloody nightmares. One February, when the frost crackled and snow covered the ground in a thick blanket, a young writer named Jack arrived in the town of Snowfall. He was drawn not only by the beauty of the snowy landscapes, but also by the horrific werewolf legends he wanted to use in his new book. Jack settled in the old inn under the Golden Wolf, where the owner, Old Thomas, was happy to share with him chilling stories of the beast. He spoke of people disappearing, of blood-stained pieces of clothing found, and of the eerie howls that echoed from the depths of the forest at night. "They say the werewolf is a former forest ranger who died in these woods many years ago," Thomas whispered hoarsely, pouring Jack a hot mulled wine. His soul found no peace, and now he roams the nights, looking for prey. Jack, despite the fear that gripped his heart like ice, decided to investigate the mystery. He wrote down Thomas's stories, then, armed only with a flashlight and an old shotgun, he ventured into the forest, looking for traces of the werewolf. His steps slipped on the deep snow, and every rustle of the branches sent chills down his spine. The frost stung his face, and the wind howled through the bare branches of the trees, creating eerie sounds. Finally, after an hour of wandering, Jack found what he was looking for: horrific footprints in the snow leading into the thick of the forest. The tracks were huge, with sharp claws that left deep grooves in the thick snow. Jack, clutching the shotgun in his hand, followed the trail. The forest grew darker, and the cold grew harsher. Every rustle scared him, and every imagined rustle made him turn around. Suddenly, Jack heard the crack of branches behind him. He turned around and saw a horrific creature emerge from the darkness. The werewolf was bigger than Jack imagined. His eyes burned with fury, and sharp fangs protruded from his mouth. The beast lunged at Jack, revealing its horrific claws. Jack fired, but the bullet only grazed the werewolf. The beast roared in pain and lunged at Jack with even greater fury. Jack started to run, stumbling over tree roots and falling into the deep snow. The werewolf chased after him, its horrific howls tearing through the silence of the forest. Jack ran without looking back, tripping over tree roots and falling into the deep snow. Exhausted, he had almost lost hope of survival. Suddenly, he saw a light in the distance. It was the inn under the Golden Wolf. Jack gathered his last strength and ran towards it. He reached the door of the inn, but it was locked. He banged on the door, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Thomas, open up." It took a few agonizing seconds before the door opened a crack. Old Thomas peered out cautiously, his face filled with fear. "Let me in," Jack shouted, gasping for breath. "It's after me." Thomas looked out into the darkness, and the fear on his face deepened. He quickly opened the door and pulled Jack inside, locking the door behind them with all the bolts. Jack fell to the floor, exhausted and panting. He could hear his heart pounding Feng Kuang, and his breath turned to a wheeze. From outside came the horrific howls of the werewolf, getting closer and closer. Thomas ran to the fireplace and grabbed a poker. He threw a handful of dried herbs into the fire, which exploded into green flames. "This will scare it away," Thomas muttered, his voice trembling. But not for long. They sat by the fireplace all night, listening to the werewolf howl around the inn. The green flames from the herbs began to fade, and fear gripped Jack's heart again. Suddenly, at dawn, the howling stopped. There was silence so deep it seemed deafening. Thomas went to the window and looked out carefully. He turned to Jack with relief on his face. "It seems to be gone," Thomas said. Jack went to the window and saw that the snow around the inn was torn to pieces, as if a huge body had been thrown there. For several days, Jack could not recover from what he had experienced. He did not dare to go out into the forest again, but the horrific experience inspired him to write a story. He described the icy windows of the inn, the howling of the werewolf, and the glow of the green flames that seemed to be the only thing separating him from a horrible fate. The book became a bestseller. Jack's story of the Wisconsin werewolf spread around the world, adding another chilling legend to the state's rich folklore. However, the story didn't end there. A year after his escape, Jack received a letter from Thomas. It contained only a few lines, but they sent shivers down Jack's spine. The werewolf hunts again, and this time it seems to know where you live. Jack shuddered. He suddenly remembered telling Thomas about his hometown and address in a letter. Could the werewolf somehow have learned about it? Jack couldn't find peace. The horrific experience in the forest haunted him, turning every night noise into a terrifying nightmare. He constantly looked over his shoulder, expecting to see the werewolf's horrifying eyes watching him. One night when Jack couldn't sleep, he heard an awful howl. The beast was somewhere close. Jack grabbed his shotgun and rushed to the window. In the darkness, he saw a terrifying figure approaching his house. The werewolf was bigger than Jack remembered. Its eyes burned with fury, and sharp fangs protruded from its mouth. Jack fired, but the bullet only grazed the beast. The werewolf roared in pain and lunged at the house. Jack bolted the door shut, but he knew it wouldn't help. The beast was too strong. He rushed to the window, looking for an escape route, but the werewolf was already there. The horrific creature smashed the window and lunged at Jack. Jack fought desperately, but the beast was too powerful. The werewolf knocked him to the ground and sank its sharp claws into his body. Jack screamed in pain, but his screams went unheard. He was alone, face to face with a horrifying creature. The werewolf tore Jack to pieces. Its horrific howls echoed through the night, frightening everyone who heard it. By morning, nothing was left of Jack but bloodstains on the snow. The horror of the Wisconsin woods had triumphed again. Jack's death became a tragedy for his hometown. People were shocked and scared. The horrifying legend of the werewolf came alive again. Old Thomas was grief-stricken. He blamed himself for not being able to protect Jack. He died a few weeks later, consumed by grief and fear. Jack's story became a warning to others. People were afraid to walk in the forest at night, and children were scared of werewolf tales. The horror of the Wisconsin woods remained forever etched in the memories of people. Its howls still frighten those who venture into the dark forests.